And hello again, and here we are back in my garage for another episode about my 1170 project. And we ended the last video with oil all over the floor because I didn't realise that the engine had no sump plug in it before I started pouring in the oil, which is very stupid of me. So I've just ordered some parts and there's a sump plug that I need. That's great, I can put that on now and we'll try again. Ordered that from Z Power. I also ordered what's in here, which are the tank badges for the bike. Got to take them to Mark the painter soon because he needs them before he can map out the design on the tank, so I've got to do that. I've also got here the stainless steel 8mm clutch push rod that I made. It's now been shortened and machined, and in fact we machined a little hollow in the end because the slave here, has a ball bearing in it, so having two round edges against each other isn't a good idea, so we've put a hollow in there so that the ball bearing's not tempted to try and skip across the surface. So that's good. We'll try that now and fit that. Of course I can't fit it for last time because I still don't have the front sprocket made yet. We ordered the part, it arrived, it was the wrong one, it should have been a 530, it was a 630, so I'm going to order a new one. That's on its way now, it should be here next week, and we can try and combine that with a standard sprocket and make a final sprocket which gives me the 1-inch offset I need to get the chain fully aligned on the bike. So that's happening at the moment. So what's next then? Well, next I'm going to double check and triple check everything on this bike before I try and start it for the very first time, because no doubt I have skipped things, I've maybe not tightened up or topped up a nut here or there, so I'll do that before I roll the bike out for the first time and try and start it. But not so fast, because when I looked underneath the sump to fit the sump plug, it turns out there's another part missing. The sump has a second hole in it, which it turns out is to hold some kind of oil level sender or sensor, which I don't have. So even with the sump plug in place, it'll still leak oil. So can't put any oil in it yet. I have to go off and find that part number, get it ordered and get it on the bike in a few days time. At first I thought, oh, I didn't have one, I've got to order one. But it turns out I did have this thing in a box on a shelf that I didn't even know about. So great, no problem, we'll get it on the bike and then we can fill it full of oil and try and start it for the first time. But not so easy, because this thing won't fit on the sump with the exhaust pipe in the way, which was like, oh no, here we go again. Now as it turns out, I have no use for this sender, I don't really want to use it anyway, so I thought perhaps I could just make a plate from this as a template and bolt it on. But then I had a better idea, and in fact what I did was, I sawed it in half. So I keep the seal and the aluminium parts, but get rid of this sender that I don't even need. That makes the whole thing a lot fatter. And so now with this thing cut in half and a lot thinner, it should hopefully go straight on the sump without too much of a problem. And so now looking at the underside of the bike, this is the sump and this is the oil level sender, which I've cut in half to try and fit it with the exhaust pipe in place. It was a good idea. I've got one bolt in place, but I cannot get the other bolt, which is right over there at the far side. Oops. And the exhaust pipe is positioned perfectly to stop me from getting the damn bolt in place. So sadly, all this has got to come off, and then at last I can get this one bolt in place. Then of course I've got to refit the exhaust pipe all over again. And now here we are, it's the next day, and I'm about to remove the exhaust system from the bike to gain access to that one bolt that's in the sump that I can't do when the exhaust system's in the way. Before then, today's been a good day because I've had a few deliveries. First of all, I've got this rather long parcel here, and this parcel is another stainless steel rod. In this case, it's a 6mm ground stainless rod. I'm going to use that to make the gear change linkage for the bike, so that's pretty straightforward, nothing to worry about there. I've also got this great big parcel here. You can see it's a bit of a big one. This big thing here, and this is not for the Z1170. It's not for the Guzzi, no. It's for the Mark II project, so I'm going to keep it in this box all wrapped up for the time being because I won't be doing anything on that for a few weeks yet. So that can disappear and we'll open that another day. I've also just collected something from Jeff the welder, I'm not sure you can see it from over there, but this is the spline fitment that goes on the end of the gear change. And what we've done is we've welded on a piece to it, it's been shaped, and now I've got to do a bit more work on it and drill a hole in it so it can take a rose joint, which in turn will affix to this stainless rod, and that's half of the gear change done. So that's been good, yeah, so I've got to do that now. But first we've got to remove the exhaust system from the bike, as I say, to gain access to the sump to fit that one damn bolt. Hopefully I don't have to remove the downpipes as well, but we'll see. I won't film that since it's going to be really boring to watch, so I'll come back when I've done it. Okay, so that's done. That was a bit of a struggle, but we got there in the end, and that damn bolt is now in the sump, so hopefully now the engine should be oil tight and I can put some oil in it for the first time. Can't do that yet though, because I've lost too much oil from my tin down here, so now I've got to go and buy another can of oil tomorrow to make sure I've got enough to fill up the engine correctly. So in the meantime then, I've still got an awful lot to do. And so moving on then, here we have my side panel, which I just borrowed back from Mark the painter, as I've just been to see him to drop off some badges for the tank. And while I was there, I borrowed the side panel back, and that's because I need it to work out a point on the electrics box behind where I need to drill a hole, and that hole needs to be aligned with this hole here in the back of the side panel, and that's where I'm going to fit this thing, the ignition barrel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, where's it gone, this thing here. This is a 20mm hole saw, which happens to be the same diameter as I need to mount this thing. So once I've worked out where to drill it, I can drill a hole and mount this ignition barrel on the electrics box right in line with this hole here, so then I can get the key in and start the bike. It's a bit tricky because I've got a lot of wiring behind here that I've got to make sure I don't cut and mess up with this thing, so come back when I've done it. And now here we are, half an hour later, and I must say it went quite well. The hole saw went through the stainless steel plate quite easily, and now I've mounted the ignition barrel in the correct place, which is right behind this hole in the side panel. All good. Only slight problem is that when the ignition key is fitted, let me do this now. There we go. Hang on, make sure I get it well aligned. I can't see too well here. Right, there you go. So when that's all in place, and the side panel's in place as well, it's barely sticking out of this hole, which means it's very difficult for me to get hold of it and turn it, which actually isn't such a surprise. I sort of knew that might happen. So rather than modifying the ignition barrel mount or modifying the side panel, I'm going to modify this key here. It's metal, it's got a plastic cover on it, so all I've got to do is pull the cover off and glue or weld on an extension, only about 10mm long, to take this out a little bit to let me grip it quite easily when I want to use the key in the barrel here. So yeah, I'll call that a win. I did have to pull off some of the wires here though that were in the way, so I've got to put all that back into place. And that's that. So yeah, I'll call that a win. But anyway, there's still plenty more to do, so I've opened up the box for the machine carbs and gone through the manual here, because I need to sort out the fuel lines. Now at the moment, of course, I don't have a fuel tank, so I'm going to use this thing here. This is my temporary fuel supply. That's all ready to go. And in the box of the machine carbs, I've got this rather large tube, and it turns out this is for the engine breather, which sits behind the carb. So normally the engine breather would go up into the airbox. Don't have an airbox, so I'll have to find an alternative method of sorting out the breather. Now the breather should just give out a sort of oily mist occasionally, nothing too much, maybe a drop after a very long run on the motorway. So if I run this thing up and away from the breather, I'm not expecting to get much in the way of oil or gas or anything like that coming out of the end. But you do want to make sure it's nowhere near the back tyre, just in case it does emit some oil. And also you want to give it some sort of protection from rain and muck going in the other way. But for now I'll just plumb it in and we'll sort something out a bit neater at a later date. I've also got here this little kit of brass fitments and so on, and Jubilee clips and whatnot that I can use to install the fuel lines. And in fact, again, I've got some little bit of fuel line here that came with the kit, so I've got that open, get it done. It's all pretty straightforward. And so I've now cut and fitted the fuel lines to the machine carbs as per the instructions, and now I've just got this long piece here which will eventually be cut and go to the petcock of the tank, of course. But now this thing will go to the temporary fuel line instead. And so with that oil level plate in place and the sump in place, I've just refilled the engine with oil, hoping that we're ready to start the engine. But guess what? It's leaking again. and it's leaking from behind this inner primary plate here on the outrigger system, which is a bit of a blow because it's a right pain to fit and a right pain to take off. And I think I know why. I think what's probably happened is, as I've been struggling to fit it with the gear change mechanism behind it, the paper gasket that we made for it may have moved slightly, because, you know, I don't know. I think we'll have to make another paper gasket. I'm not sure what's going on. It's all bolted down nice and tight, so I don't know what's going on, but we can see it's leaking here. Now, it didn't start leaking for a while, because obviously when the oil level gets to a certain point, then it starts to leak. So at least I'm not losing all my expensive oil at the moment. But yeah, I'll just leave it now to finish leaking off, and then I'll remove all this yet again. It's a right pain to do because there's lots of things to undo. Take it off and see what is going on. But yeah, I don't think this bike is going to be starting anytime soon. And I must say, it is giving me problem after problem after problem. But we won't give in, I'll just have to wait for it to stop leaking out, and then we'll take all this off and see what's going on behind this plate. Okay, so I've removed everything. I've just got this paper gasket in the way now. I can't see any obvious reasons why it would leak. I mean, everything seems to be lined up okay. Oh, I don't know. So let's get this off here. I can't use this again, it needs to be remade, I think. Make a new one of them. I've no idea what's going on. It seems to leak down here, where it's quite thin. As you see, I've used some sealant on here to get all that off now and clean up all these faces. Although right now I am so teed off with this whole damn outrigger system, I'm thinking just going out there now on eBay and buying a standard cover for this, standard gaskets, and just going for a standard system for the time being at least, because this is just causing me such a huge amount of problems at the moment. Yeah. Anyway, I'm really, as I say, teed off now, so I'm going to stop, I'm going to clean up, and I'll consider this another day, because right now I have had enough of this bike. It's caused me one too many problems. And now an hour or two has gone by, I've had a cup of tea, and I've calmed down a bit after the disappointment of the outrigger system leaking oil yet again. So when I think about it, and I found a standard version of this thing on eBay, which I've just ordered, should be here in a few days' time. It costs about £30. Now, I may not end up using it, but it's nice to have just in case. It's just in case I can't get this completely oil tight. I don't know why it leaks. I've looked at the homemade gasket here, this paper gasket looks okay. So, you know, I'm at a loss as to why it leaked. The only thing I can point out is it's leaking from down here where the faces are the thinnest. It's like right there where it's very thin. So who knows. So yeah, I've ordered that, and what else is going on? So yeah, however, I still do want to use this outrigger system if I can get it oil tight. So to that end, I'm going to copy this gasket again, but this time I think I'll use a slightly thicker gasket material. I've got a range up on the shelf somewhere of different thicknesses, and this is one of the thinner ones. So maybe it's not compressing quite enough. Maybe there's a little bit of need for a thicker gasket. I don't know, but we'll try that. I'll make it out of let's say a slightly thicker gasket material. I also, of course, used sort of RTV sealant, very expensive RTV sealant, on the faces, but I didn't use that much. I was very sort of you know, conscious of not putting on too much, so maybe I need to use a bit more of that, I don't know. But yeah, overall then, it's a massive disappointment, and I really hope to get the bike you know, started in this video. What I did do though, that you can't see because I didn't film it, is even though it's leaking a bit of oil, there's still enough oil in it to actually turn the engine over for the very first time. So I hit the starter button for the very first time, and thankfully the circuit worked and the engine started to turn over, which is at least a small win today, because it's been a day of losses really for me. So yeah, at least I know that the starter motor works and the circuitry works that are wired on the bikes. That's a small win at least. So yeah, I'm sorry to say, this bike will not be starting up anytime in the next few days, so we'll have to come back when I get the new parts in and we'll try again. So anyway, thanks for watching, and cheers.